We live in time lag for a reason, and it's to bless us. So even if you're in this dark space for, let's say, a week or two, you haven't just shot your vision all to crap. It's okay. We got universal laws. Mercy is a law. It's all right. Like, you got to regroup, you got to reset. And then it's so much easier because you can use these emotions to then add fuel rather to your fire. Hello, Prosperity Seeker, and welcome to another episode of The Prosperity Approach. I'm your host, Allyson Chavez. As always, I'm so happy that you joined me. We've got more of a serious topic to go into today, but my hope and my intention behind this episode is that you'll actually leave feeling more relieved and lighter than you have felt in a long time, and armed with some tools that are going to assist you moving through any sort of heaviness. But before we dive into that, just a few reminders. If you're listening to the audio version of this episode, be sure you're following the podcast on your favorite app. And if you're watching this episode on YouTube, be sure that you click that red subscribe button below and click the notification bell so you'll get notified whenever we drop a new episode. And if you want to stay in touch and you want to see what we're up to and get to know me a little bit better, head on over to AllysonChavez.com. We've got a free prosperity guide there for you. We've got meditations there for you for free. We're generally either doing an online retreat or an online experience of some kind, or we're gearing up for one, so you can get some more information on that. And you can see what other programs and things we have to offer to help you get to success without struggle. And so head on over to AllysonChavez.com and see what we've got going on over there. So I had a client actually ask me this question, and as you know, I work with ambitious, driven, God-centered women, many of whom are entrepreneurs who are looking to get to their first six figures, their next six figures, some who are just beginning their journey of entrepreneurship. We've got them in all different phases of their journey right now. But a question that comes up a lot is, how do you maintain your vision? How do you stay connected to your vision when life curveballs you? Right? And not just like a little bit of an upset here or there. What happens when you feel sucker punched? What happens when you're blindsided? What happens when something comes out of the blue that not only causes pain, but demands your attention, whether that's in health of yourself or of a loved one, of death, of any of those really big life things that just come out of nowhere. And there are more of us who can relate to that now than probably in the last 50 years. And there's such large scale grief going on and such large scale life upset going on right now. And so I want to talk about that. Not so that we're diving into the pit of despair, not so that, we're adding to the energy of the problem, but really getting into the energy of the solution. But here's the thing. Thousands and thousands of years of training and conditioning have buttoned women up really nicely, right? Like, it's weak to cry. It's weak to, we're not allowed, because it's not socially acceptable to express emotions in a healthy way. And so we get super aggressive. We go to like extremes, right? So we'll get super aggressive. We man up as women. And how in the world do you do that when you're actually a woman? Or we button ourselves up really, really nicely. It's fascinating to me. And just as a little side note, it's really fascinating to me when I run live events and we do music. And, we're wanting to get the energy up. And even, whether I'm running my own event or I'm at another live event, people will hardly move their bodies. Women will hardly move their bodies. Don't even ask them to get into their hips. Holy cow. They'll sway a little bit, or they'll step side to side and then they'll snap, maybe. everything's really tight, everything's really close, because we've not been allowed this full range of emotion and this full range of expression in a healthy way. It's why women want to escape. It's why we're numbing. And not just women, men are doing this as well. But when we're cut off really from our divine nature, from our divine feminine and the way that we express, the emotions don't just go away. When you shove them and you stuff them and you deny them, they just wait and they get bigger. And then they come out in explosions that aren't healthy. They actually get very destructive. So how do we navigate through this as empowered women? And how do we feel the range of emotion in a healthy way? And what do we do when we've got these really big plans and then life just gives you a massive Zerbert or a massive raspberry, right? In ways that are just so viscerally painful to us. And so I got to draw on my personal experience with this as well. I have big goals. I have big dreams, just like you do. And I am certain that I'll reach them. And I'm also in surrender about how they're going to come. But I like deadlines. I like strategy that's going to support my vision and support my desire, just like any other woman, right? And I remember this was a couple of years ago when life just yanked that rug right out from underneath me. We had gotten the ship righted, right? So now the sail was pointing up towards the sky instead of in the ocean, financially speaking. And I got my feet underneath me, and I had learned so much and grown so much, and we just started taking off. My business started taking off. Clients were coming. Our money was good. Like, things were so great. And I was like, man, how can life get any better than this? This is so fantastic. And I remember this so clearly because this happened on a weekend in November, and I had spoken at a conference. At that point, I had made more money in one day than I had ever made before in my company. I think we did like $30,000 in a day. And I had never done that before, ever. And I was so excited and just on top of the world. And then our children brought me down. And we were 4 hours away from home. We were driving home, and and I'm not going to go into any of those details because that's not my story to tell. But the part that is mine to tell is that what I thought was real wasn't. And part of my children had been running a con on me. and it all came to just a shattering halt. And it was so curious to me to start the day in such a massive high and to end the day lower than I had felt in a very long time. Like my world crumbled. And my heart, I just felt it breaking over and over and over again. And that cliche that goes, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I thought that was always kind of a dumb cliche. But I remember when my husband said, "Hey, we've been lied to, and here's what's been going on." We have a walk-in closet. And I had turned around when he was talking to me, and I felt the earth shift on its axis, and I had to hold the sides of the doorway into our closet because I was going to collapse. Like, I just about physically fell over. And everything dissolved. And I was filled with rage, first of all. So much anger, so much rage at the betrayal and at the duplicity and the complicity that was going on with some of my children. And lest you think they're horrible humans, They're not. So they weren't running a trafficking ring or a drug cartel or anything like that. They are absolutely phenomenal people. And then they had made some really dumb choices that were leading them down a pretty quick self-destructive path. So I just want to make that really clear. They're so fantastic. And we're at a point of healing from this. All of us are. We're all healed. There were so many miracles happened because of it, but it also required me to take a certain stance. So I was angry, all right? Like my first was rage because I don't like being lied to. Integrity is one of my core values. And I had my integrity breached so badly by these people that I created, that if it had been anybody else that had lied to me like that and betrayed me like that, not only would they be cut off, I would have nothing to do with them ever, because my trust in them was completely gone. I mean, that's how deeply I was wounded. So there was rage, and then followed so closely on its heels with grief, intense grief. I would rally just to crumble again, and I'd rally and then I would crumble again because I did not know how to navigate this new reality that was suddenly thrust upon me. And I didn't want to. And I still had these visions and I still had these goals and I was still ambitious, but my family demanded my attention and my emotions demanded my attention. So how do we do that? First of all, you've got to feel what you're going to feel. And most of the time we make ourselves wrong. We don't allow ourselves to feel it. Like we just get right into survival mode, we get right into the grind and we get stuff done. And sometimes we need to do that because we get into this mode of protection, and it helps us through the first few hours or days or weeks of the rawness. So it really is a gift, but those feelings must be felt. Those emotions must be felt and they must be acknowledged. And let yourself take a minute. Let yourself take a day, let yourself take a weekend and just be with that emotion. So everything came down on a Sunday, and I remember my husband went to work the next day, and it was a dangerous situation. So we actually pulled our daughter out of school. Like she went to school on a Friday. This all thing happened on a weekend, and she never went back to traditional school. And we just yanked her right out, and we just kept her right near us. It was a really, really dark and really, really scary time. And I was so mad at her, but I also knew I needed to love her, and I just couldn't yet. And I remember my husband was taking care of those things because I just didn't have the capacity for it. I was in so much grief and still just processing through that, but I allowed myself to do that. And I remember texting him, and I said, it feels like my world has ended. Like that's what this feels like. And he texted back something so beautiful, and he said, yes, it has, but perhaps this is the beginning of a new and a better world. And just in that moment, I felt my heart start to mend just a little bit, because he helped change my perspective from the darkness to, do you know what? There might be some stars here. The darker the night, the easier it is to see the stars if you'll look up. And I had to take it moment by moment by moment. And I still had my vision, but that had to be not even set aside, because it wasn't like, well, I can't focus on that right now. But for the first little while, I couldn't. You know what? This needs to take care of itself, and I trust that it will. Your business is not going to fall apart in 72 hours. All right? If emails aren't answered within 24 hours, you're not going to lose your following. All right? Let yourself live and let yourself be and let yourself process. And I had to go into some great self-care for myself so that I could then show up for my daughter. And I just kept running that through my mind. Our world did end, but it opened up into a new one. And this one can be even better. And we can be even closer as a family and even more bonded and healed as a family. Maybe let's look at that, and maybe we can create that instead of death and dismemberment and I'll never trust you again and all of those issues, because those are really easy to choose into as well. So if your world has ended, the world like as you knew it has ended, let it be okay that it hurts. Feel it in your body. Now here's where we run into trouble, because we don't know how to express our emotions in a healthy way. They tend to get stuck. And so we go, no, I can't deal with that right now. And sometimes we can't. Like if we have funeral arrangements we have to make, or if we have to be in therapy with a loved one, or whatever that looks like, or hey, we're now in the hospital, then yeah, like you need to deal with what you need to deal with. But you can do it from peace. You can do it from a feeling of support. You can do it from whatever that feeling is that you want to connect with. You can do it from that space. You just got to choose that space and start looking at all of the ways that you already feel that, and all of the situations in your current life that help you to feel that way that you want to feel. One thing that I found was very helpful was moving my body. We get stuck in grief because we get very still. Grief is so intense, and grief has so much pain that we do just want to kind of like cave in on ourselves, and we just want to rock and we want to be soothed. But what happens with grief is we get stuck there because it's such a low vibration, and it's a very, very heavy vibration, and it's hard for our body to hold. It's why we just want to sleep. It's why we have a very hard time getting out of bed. At least if we've got anger and rage. I mean, have you ever cleaned your house in anger or rage? You get stuff done, right? You scrub harder than you've ever scrubbed before. So you're moving that energy out of your body in a really healthy way when you're cleaning your house, when you're mad. It's much easier to dance or to work out when you're mad because you've got that much more energy and force behind it. But grief is different. Grief makes us just want to go still and just pray that it will pass quickly. But the law of inertia is real in our bodies, right? Objects at rest will stay at rest unless an object that has greater velocity coming from an opposite direction influences it. And so it's very important that as you're feeling the grief, you will allow yourself to feel it, but move your body. Like let the grief dance you. Put some music on and just let your body move to it and let yourself express. If you need to cry into a pillow, then cry into a pillow. If you need to keen, I wanted to keen. And keen is a very, very deep, raw, primal kind of a wail or a cry, which expresses such deep pain, but is so healing, and it opens up so much space. So just try for those things. Let yourself cry, because we need to let this emotion move through your body through some sort of movement. But you gotta move. And here's what's so beautiful about it. You can navigate this with leading through your feminine, because the feminine is dynamic. The feminine is circular. The feminine has movement to it. That is one of the characteristics of feminine energy. Now, the masculine energy also has movement to it, but it tends to be very linear. All right. So we got to get this done and this done and this done and this done. And we're going to move in this forward trajectory, right? We're going to go in this forward motion. And the feminine whizzes and circles and just doubles back, and it goes over here and then it goes over there. And so let yourself do that as you breathe and know that it's okay. One of the things that I used for the first probably month on the reg was only good can come of this. Only good can come of this. And this was not a convincing myself. It was a gentle reminder. What I have learned through the death of my mother as a child, the death of my younger brother a decade ago, losing children to choices. And then thank you, Lord, I've not lost any children to death. But like losing relationships and repairing relationships, what I have discovered through my own experience is if you will show up in a way where you're expecting to be supported and you make yourself look for the blessings in the situation, what these very sorrowful and harrowing experiences do is they literally create more capacity for joy on the other end of it. But you have to get through that deep grief and that deep sorrow in order to get to joy on the other end. And that is why I kept telling myself, actually, only good can come of this. Only good. There is something here for me to learn. There's a way for me to grow. There's something in me to heal that I didn't even know needed to be healed. And I had to continually just remind myself that God is not this malicious God that's like, hey, let's toss him that trial and see how she does. He's not. He doesn't like, do you want your kid in suffering a nanosecond longer than is necessary? No, but also you know that sometimes they have to go through those periods of darkness to give them skills to help them learn who their friends really are, how strong they actually are, and that they will come out of it stronger than they were when they moved into it because of the situation. And God is that way as well. It's literally to prepare us to receive greater and greater amounts of joy and healing. And it's so easy to forget that. But if you will allow your feelings to be right, the dark, low feelings as well as the light, bright feelings, you'll be able to express them in a healthy way. And it will open up your capacity to then say, okay, I can still stay connected to my vision. This is going to look different than I thought it would. You know, at the beginning of the year, I had some strategies in place for how I was going to grow and how I was going to have a greater influence and impact and, you know, have greater visibility. And like I had that locked and loaded. And then we had another relapse with our daughter. And I was like, nope, that one's not going to happen. That's not going to happen right now. God's got something more important for me to focus on. And there will be other ways that it will open that I'll still be able to get my message out and I'll still be able to influence others for good and my needs will still be taken care of. But it's those reminders. It's understanding that you can create the life that you desire, even experiencing all the range of emotions. And in fact, that's one of the ways you do create the life you desire. I can't remember who said this. A number of people have said this, but they said if you deny your shadow, you also deny your light. And so if you won't allow yourself to feel those dark feelings of anger and rage and hatred and envy and the unfairness of it all, you also cut yourself off from awestruck gratitude, from feeling glorious beyond any sort of glory you've ever felt before. If you deny one, you also deny the other, and then you end up in this really tight, small little space to create in. And we live in time lag for a reason, and it's to bless us. So even if you're in this dark space for, let's say, a week or two, you haven't just shot your vision all to crap. It's okay. We got universal laws. Mercy is a law. It's all right. Like you got to regroup, you got to reset. And then it's so much easier because you can use these emotions to then add fuel rather to your fire. You know, add fuel to that flame. And it connects you to your vision in a deeper way than you were connected before. But it's trusting that everything happens for you. Nothing happens to you, and only good can come of this. It's the law of utilization. Everything happens for a reason, and that reason is to assist me. So how am I going to use this? How am I going to use this for my good and to also move others along as well? Can this bless me and others? Yes. Now, sometimes the huge curveballs are a death. So there's not the healing that it didn't take the form that you thought it would. Sometimes it doesn't have the happy ending that we have experienced so far. But you can still find the good in it, because there will always be good to be found. And you must look for it. And then understand, like, you'll feel it. And you'll feel it. You'll feel your capacity to receive more will come. More joy. You'll find other ways to connect to your vision and to move forward in your vision. Because you let your desires lead, you tap into pleasure and sensuality in all of its forms with your senses throughout the day. You let that lead you and guide you. And when it's time to cry, you let yourself cry. And when it's time to punch a pillow and scream into a pillow and throw rags against a wall and have a tantrum, you allow yourself to do that as well. I hope these things have been helpful for you. And if you are needing that extra love and somebody that's going to just hold you and see you and hear you, we've actually got an online retreat going on. Come, let us soothe you and fill you with relief and help you see how simple and easy it really is to connect to your vision, no matter what's going on in your life, and how to lead out with the feminine. It's called the Prosperity Experience. Success Without Struggle. Hop over into our Facebook group. It's called the Prosperity Experience. Get yourself registered. You can click on the link in the show notes and we'll see you there. There's no reason for you to do any of the hard things alone. You're not designed to. One of the characteristics of the feminine is community. So come join us, come belong with us, and let's help you dance your way to creating your vision. And until then, remember, beautiful, glorious being of light that you are, prosperity becomes you.